I read a piece of research, I think it was HBR beginning of the year, which said that 80% of people with marketing in their job title hadn't spoken with a customer in the previous 6 weeks, which is basically dereliction of duty as far as I'm concerned. They should take a very, very long walk off a very short plank instantly.
Off you go.
They're not doing, off you go. You're not doing your jobs, okay? Marketing's job is to bring the voice of the customer to the boardroom. And unless you're speaking with customers regularly and often, you can't do your job. You're just, using tarot cards or using the force or something. I mean, it's just
like crystal ball. Marketers
it's just total and utter horseshit, and it doesn't help us because it just reinforces this whole stereotype that we are this hippy-dippy, unwashed mass of idiots who haven't got a clue what we're doing, right? So we need to be able to understand our customers to the point where we can produce effective communication for where they are going to be. Skate to where the puck is going to be, right? That's what we need to do. That doesn't mean that we need to do just what customers tell us to do, because customer centricity, as far as I'm concerned, is a pile of shit. Because customers lie. Ultimately, if you ask customers, they will tell you whatever they think will make you happy, right? But more than that, we need to prepare the rest of the business to be able to support the sales teams on those marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads that go through pipeline. Because there's no point getting an order for 100,000 widgets when manufacturing can't do more than 50, right? It doesn't matter. So every part of the system needs to be aligned for wherever the business is at that particular time. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is the job of marketing. Because it's certainly not the job of sales. Manufacturing are just doing what manufacturing can do, right? They're on an efficiency metric. They're just trying to make widgets as cheaply as possible, right? Mm-hmm. That's all they're about. So who else is going to do that? Nobody. It's down to us.
Right.
You're listening to Brainwork Framework, a business and marketing podcast, brought to you by focus-biz.com.
Welcome back to another episode. With us today is the CEO of KEXINO, Gee Ranasinha. He is a full-service marketing agency that dives more into the behavioral science practice of marketing, communications, and sales. Gee, so excited to have you on. How have you been?
I've been absolutely awesome, Chris. Could not be more awesome, even if I tried.
That is so exciting.
And how are you this fine day?
I'm doing super fantastic. Our pre-show interview here went fantastic. Love the energy and the character that you're bringing to the table. Both the fun, exciting element that you bring and more of the philosophical experience that you bring as well, because marketing, sales, communication all kind of dive into behavior science. What have you learned about it? What do we need to know?
What we need to know is that what we're doing as marketers doesn't friggin' work. It no longer works. Nobody's replying to our emails. Nobody's answering the phone. Nobody's replying to our social media stuff. No one's looking at our ads. It's all shot to shit. And the reason why is varied and multiple, but one of the main reasons is that we no longer know what we used to know as marketers. We no longer know enough about the influences and behavioral drivers that compel our buyers to make a purchasing decision. We can't put together evocative and memorable communication because we're basically throwing darts at a dartboard while blindfolded, which probably is great if you're at the circus. Well, it helps if you're like 3'2" or something, but otherwise it's a total and utter waste of time, money and effort. We are not doing our jobs properly. We used to do this stuff back in the days right? Madman days, if you like, but even up until the sort of 80s and 90s. Pre-broadband internet, we used to know this stuff, and we were very judicious in our application of creative execution to deliver memorable campaigns. Then something happened along the way, sounds like the title of a song, something happened along the way where we subjugated the efforts to technology, and we figured that custom audience profiles and remarketing tags and UTM codes and third-party cookies and all the rest of it could do that job for us. And if you look at what we're doing today, right, by the end of 2025, we are forecast as an industry, the marketing industry, to have spent $1.7 trillion globally. We have never spent more money on marketing and advertising than we have today. Yet the results are falling off a cliff. So why is that? Yes, there's more competition. Yes, there's more people doing it, and that's part of it. But the other half is that we're not doing our jobs properly because we're not creating emotional content that resonates and, most importantly, is recollected by buyers when they are in the buying phase. Because we have to separate in-market from out-of-market buyers, right? Mm-hmm. Out-of-market buyers are the people who possibly could be buying what we have to sell, but are not going to buy it today, tomorrow, or even the day after tomorrow. But they need to have heard of us so that when they are in the market to buy, they think of us as well as obviously the competition. Because if we're not in that consideration set at the point of deliberation, the chances of us getting the sale at that point in time are virtually zero. So we need to create evocative campaigns, memorable content that resonates with our target audience earlier on in the process, so that when they think of the category, when they think of the solution that they're looking for to solve their problem, we are one of those vendors that come to mind.
But it's
And
even
we're
more
not doing
of a
that.
challenge now because, one, like you said, the market is crowded, right? There's just so many ads. They're in our gas station pumps now. We can't walk anywhere without seeing an ad. But to even have them be effective, we're missing the mark here.
Totally missing the mark. And it's funny you use the E word, effective. Because what we're doing as an industry is we're trying to create greater efficiencies and ignoring effectiveness. Okay? Now, before we go any further, it's probably helpful to give you my definition of efficiency and effectiveness, right? Which is probably not your definition, but then I don't care about your definition because you're wrong. Okay?
You're the guest here today.
Yeah. So whatever I say goes, right? Black is white, up is down, right? So the way I define effectiveness is how good we are at achieving a particular goal that we've set ourselves. Okay? We want to do X. We plan a series of campaigns, a series of media buys, whatever that tactical plan looks like, to achieve that particular outcome. And the effectiveness is how well we do, how well we achieve that. Maybe we overachieve in terms of time frame, in terms of results, whatever it may be. But it's how well we do what we set out to do. Efficiency, on the other hand, is a ratio. Efficiency is about measuring a particular input to generate a particular output. And to create an efficient system means reducing input while maintaining a prerequisite output, right? Which is a very different prospect. Efficiency is about reducing the budget that we're spending on stuff. while achieving mere results.
It's almost like
Right?
in the world of AI right now that is their motto. How do we get more done and not worry about the end result? It's just not effective.
Yeah, I mean it's a tsunami of slop, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It should be alliteration that, but it's not because there's a T involved. But it should be, right?
Absolutely.
Unless we put a T in slop, just to sort of be perverse, right? But the slop tsunami is working on the premise that, if we bombard you with enough shite, we'll bombard you into submission and you'd hand over your credit card details, right? So it's all performance driven. There is no creative execution. I mean, just look at all of this stuff. And unfortunately, it's especially online, okay? You look at any piece of customer-facing marketing content from two businesses in the same category. 10 will get you 5. If you put those two pieces of content side by side and covered up the logos, the message could be interchangeable between those two businesses, right? Mm-hmm. Now, that's a major, major problem. Because, Marketing 101 is about differentiation and distinctiveness. Now, if I can't tell the difference between you and your competitor, then I have to use a measurement metric that matters to me, which inevitably comes down to price, right? We've automatically created a commodity sale in our category. And as we know, there's always somebody somewhere who's prepared to sell it cheaper. So that's not really a race we want to win.
No, and
right? We want to keep well away from that. It's a quick race to business hell. Mm-hmm. So if we're looking at creating value and adding value to what we're doing, we need to show differentiation. We need to be distinctive within our category. And we need to have some kind of salience, some kind of mental availability so that people know who we are before we've even opened our mouths. And we're not doing any of that stuff. We have all of these people with marketing in their job title who haven't got a frigging clue what they're doing. They think marketing is promotion or communications, right? They forget that there's 3 other P's around there. There's at least,
right.
It depends on which side of the road you drive on. There's at least 4 P's. Some people say there's 5 P's, 6 P's, 10 P's. I don't really care how many P's, right? So many P's, we've got cystitis. That's how many P's we've got, right? We don't really 4. Care. I've always thought 4 was pretty damn enough, right?
What
Didn't really matter.
That suddenly came about, that other P?
Who knows? It's a silent P, like in swimming pool. If you get the joke, it's a very old joke. But regardless of how many P's you want to believe in, right? Product, price and place are just as important as promotion. And if it's done properly, you should be spending as much time on those other 3 as you are on that 4th one. So each one taking at least 25% of your time. Currently, they're taking 0% of your time for a number of reasons. Number 1 is because marketers can't have a conversation about pricing for many reasons, mainly because they can't put a coherent sentence together to have that conversation when surrounded by the C-suite, right? Most businesses, they'll have a pricing discussion and somebody will say, oh, well, should we get marketing in here? And I'll say, well, what are you talking about? You mad? Right? Well, I suppose they could make the deck look pretty if you want, but otherwise, what the hell are they going to do, right? So we don't make things easy for ourselves because we look like idiots in front of the board, okay? The board is using Olmas or Mont Blanc fountain pens, and we're out there with Crayola, right? We're just not even in the same ballpark, okay? And the reason is because we don't speak the language of business. We don't speak the language of finance. We don't speak board. So we go in there and we start talking about salience and distinctive brand assets and ESOV and this, that, and the other, and they just glaze over and they just think, oh God, okay, this is some tie-dyed hippy-dippy lunatic who's on ayahuasca, who's climbing up a mountain and sitting underneath a pyramid and telling us to believe in the power of the crystal, right? It's all just some weird West Coast loony crap, right? We can't translate. Marketing 101 is taking the language and adapting it for your target audience. But we don't do that. In our own businesses, we go in there and try to sort of use the jargon that we all use together as marketers. And then we start talking to civilians. I call them civilians, people outside of marketing, right? We try to talk to like that to civilians, and they just, their eyes glaze over and they just want to sort of say, move back slowly away from the individual. Head towards the door. Do not make any sudden moves, right? They don't know what we're talking about.
No.
So we're laughed out of the boardroom. So we should stop doing this crap. But we're not doing it.
We're essentially speaking different languages completely, because we have these words and phrases that we're going to put together that just becomes this sales garbage, a marketing garbage, the slop that we put out there. But those words aren't resonating with the audience, and they're so kind of restricted. Like they have their guard up because they know they're being sold to or trying to be marketed to. Their senses are heightened to try to avoid those keywords or catchphrases that often are said by marketers and salespeople.
It's because we come at it from a subjective position, from an emotional position. And everybody else in that boardroom are coming at things from a finance position, from an economics position, from an engineering position, from a very sort of defined, regimented 2 + 2 is always 4 Newtonian physics type direction. So when we start coming in there and saying, well, you know, the reason why we didn't sell could be because of the full moon. It could be because just people weren't in the mood this week, right?
And they don't want to hear that.
Scares them shitless. I mean, good grief. I mean, they'll call for the exorcist or something, right? It's just not what you want to hear. Even if it's what you believe, we need to translate all of this into board. It's another language, and we need to speak board, and we don't. So we're not taken seriously. Why is the average tenure of a CMO 24 months? Because they don't speak board, as well as they're given impossible targets to match, which is their own fault because they're not speaking up the way they should. But that's a different topic for another day. But the reason is that we don't fit in, right? We don't look and sound the same as everybody else around that boardroom. And we need to do that if we're going to be taken seriously. Otherwise, we're just going to have to accept our fate and bow our heads the next time there's a fiscal crisis and our budget's the first thing that gets cut and the last thing that comes back, as per usual. Because we're looked upon within the business as being a luxurious optional extra, rather than an intrinsic part of the value communication process of the business, you know? I mean, having a roof on your factory isn't an option, is it? You need to have it in order for the business to function, right? It's the same with finance, it's the same with sales, it's the same for R&D, maybe, manufacturing. But we're not looked upon like that. We're looked upon as a colouring in department.
Right. And if we're rethinking the way that we speak to C-suite executives and the board, we should be rethinking how we speak to the world, like the civilian, our potential market. We need to rethink how we're crafting and building that relationship and how behaviors play into that. It's not just about putting a catchy creative out there or a really cool headline. This is more about making a lasting impression.
I read a piece of research, I think it was HBR beginning of the year, which said that 80% of people with marketing in their job title hadn't spoken with a customer in the previous 6 weeks. Which is basically dereliction of duty as far as I'm concerned. They should take a very long walk off a very short plank instantly.
Off you go.
They're not doing... Off you go. You're not doing your jobs, okay? Marketing's job is to bring the voice of the customer to the boardroom. And unless you're speaking with customers regularly and often, you can't do your job. You're just using tarot cards or using the force or something. I mean, it's just
my crystal ball. Marketers are always trying to do that.
It's just total and utter horseshit, and it doesn't help us because it just reinforces this whole stereotype that we are this hippy-dippy, unwashed mass of idiots who haven't got a clue what we're doing, right? So we need to be able to understand our customers to the point where we can produce effective communication for where they are going to be. Skate to where the puck is going to be, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we need to do. That doesn't mean that we need to do just what customers tell us to do, because customer centricity, as far as I'm concerned, is a pile of shit. Because customers lie. Ultimately, if you ask customers, they will tell you whatever they think will make you happy. But more than that, we need to prepare the rest of the business to be able to support the sales teams on those marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads that go through pipeline. Because there's no point getting an order for 100,000 widgets when manufacturing can't do more than 50. It doesn't matter. Every part of the system needs to be aligned for wherever the business is at that particular time. And that, as far as I'm concerned, is the job of marketing. Because it's certainly not the job of sales. Manufacturing are just doing what manufacturing can do, right? They're on an efficiency metric. They're just trying to make widgets as cheaply as possible, right? Mm-hmm. That's all they're about. So who else is going to do that? Nobody.
Right. And I think it's more practical for a lot of solopreneurs, smaller business owners to want to be focused more on the customer and delivering that experience, as opposed to many of these large companies who, unfortunately, I don't think they listen to their customers, even though they're shouting in these online platforms about this is what we want, this is what we like, and they completely ignore it and they do something different. But I feel like this is a bigger opportunity for the smaller businesses because you're usually working in the field with a lot of your customers. You're working directly with them or you have a close relationship with them. I feel like corporations are more disconnected from the actual consumer and the person themselves as well. So I think that's an opportunity for us to rise above many of these other businesses.
I would say yes and no. There are many small businesses, especially these founder CEO businesses, right? Who think because they lived in that industry, broke out and started their own thing, they know their customer as well as they possibly can.
And that could be truth.
It is the absolute polar opposite of the truth, okay? There's this thing called market orientation. Google it, listener, if you don't know what it is. Market orientation is a very, very humbling exercise. It's actually finding out the reasons why people buy stuff. And it's never the reasons that you think. And the instant you change from being a buyer to being a seller, your opinion counts for the absolute square root of zero. Okay?
It's a good math joke. I like that.
Absolutely. Right. And we're not doing that. There's too many business owners saying, oh no, but I know what it is. And it's like, yeah, I feel it in my water. Yeah, we're back to cystitis again, aren't we? No, you don't feel it in your water. Really, trust me. Go to your urologist quickly. Tell them G sent you. Right? There's something wrong. And the way you solve that is speaking with customers, listening with customers, and listening to the problem they have. Not what they want, but the problem they have. Because all they'll tell you is about what's stuck in their in-tray today. They don't care about what's in their in-tray tomorrow, because tomorrow doesn't exist. All they're caring about is what's in their in-tray today. So what you need to do is find out what's the underlying process of why they're doing what they're doing, so that you can skate to where the puck is going to be. And you can prepare the business accordingly so that when this new problem comes along and they start looking around for solutions to that problem, we are primed for offering the most pertinent solution to that problem. It's not rocket science, all of this stuff, Chris. You know, it's pretty darn basic stuff. I'm not saying it's easy. but it's very simple.
I love it. I'm going to have a few more questions, but first I want to allow the opportunity. Where are the best places where people can find you and connect with you online?
The best place to find me is LinkedIn. That's the fastest place. I spend far too much time of mine on LinkedIn. I post videos twice a week, just 1 minute long videos, not asking too much from the viewer about some of the things that we've been talking about today, really. Or new stuff that's just pissed me off that day, for example, and I just need to vent. So it's a cathartic exercise from my perspective. Would you believe, Chris, there is only one Gee Ranasinha on LinkedIn? So I am quite easy to find. Yeah, how freakish is that? Yes.
I would think with such a common last name like yours, how is
absolutely.
There's only one G,
and
OG.
There's only one G, the OG, right? There's only one Gee Ranasinha. It also scores 85 at Scrabble. No, It doesn't, but it would be good if it did, wouldn't it? No, I don't have anywhere near it. I need to be Polish or something to have enough Zs and Xs and stuff in there to get there. But yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me. Otherwise, obviously the website, KEXINO.com, KEXINO. Otherwise, just Google me. I'm friggin' everywhere. I'm just everywhere. I mean, I'm just like a virus, not in a good way either. I'm sponsored by penicillin or something, I think.
That's fantastic. And we will have those links available down in the show notes and the description so you can have easy access to G here. I wanted to ask more about entrepreneurial behaviors. Like we've spoken more about the board, but I want to cover more about the business person. What kind of limiting behaviors do they have, or what makes someone successful in terms of their behavior? What should they be focused on?
Three things: integrity. That's ripping off Conrad Hilton, right? Conrad Hilton was saying, like, what's the most important thing about hotels, right? And he said, there's three things that are most important when you're setting up a hotel: location, location, location. So I just ripped off Conrad Hilton. I don't think Paris will mind, but for me, it's integrity. If you're in business, if you just did what you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it, you were already instantly in the top 10% of business professionals on the friggin' planet.
Wow.
The bar is set really darn low. And we've all got horror stories where we've contracted somebody who was supposed to be a professional and they've just fallen down at the most basic level. If I tell you, Chris, I'm going to send you a proposal on Friday at 10 a.m, right, then I'm going to move heaven and earth to make sure you get that proposal on Friday at 10 a.m. Not Friday at 10:15 a.m, not Friday at 3 p.m, and certainly not Monday at 4 p.m, right? If that's what I'm telling you, that's what's going to happen, right? Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to tell you it's going to be Friday at 10 a.m. and we're having a conversation from Thursday at 6, right? I'm going to allow for the FU factor because we have to allow for the FU factor, right?
And what is that factor?
But it's a very, very large factor. Unfortunately, it's a very large factor. But then, a business is an organization of human beings, or a disorganization of human beings, depending on which kind of business you're talking about. So you allow for the FU factor, but then what you say is what you do. And if you just do that, you're automatically better than 90% of your competition, because they don't do just this basic shit, right? If you go to visit a prospect, have a shower, right? Dry clean your clothes, right? Have a faint whiff of something pleasant in the air, right? This stuff is really, really basic. It's not just courteous and it's not just professional, it's respectful. If you can just have that level of integrity to do what you said you were going to do, I think that will automatically put you in the running for a lot of opportunities that your competitors wouldn't get.
That's a crazy concept that, hey, if you want to be successful, just take a shower every day. Like, just show up and do what you said you were going to do. But you're right. So many people miss the
What
mark.
can I tell you, Chris? I'm sponsored by Big Soap. What can I tell you?
I knew Big Soap was behind this, man.
Big Soap, BS,
you know?
or BS as I call it. You know,
Big Soap, yeah.
I'm sponsored by BS. That's very true. My wife tells me that every single day, just to ground me.
It's very nice of her.
It is. Yes, I'm very appreciative. There's no chance of me getting into any lofted heights, that's for sure. But yes, you know, it's just being a nice person, right? Being a kind person, right? Doing things for human sake, right? If we're trying to rebel against these faceless, gargantuan monoliths who are, you know, reacting to the accusations that we're putting upon them. But if we are to do that, then everything centers on who we are as human beings. You know, it's a cliched saying, but people don't buy from businesses, people buy from people, right? Mm-hmm. And there are plenty of salespeople who change jobs within a category and take their client list with them. Even if the new company is actually costing that client more, the client doesn't give a shit because they're dealing with Chris, and Chris is somebody they can trust, and Chris is somebody they've known for a long time, and that counts for a lot. It's value add, right? You know, it's going back to solution selling for a product. You know, you are the product, especially if you're a small scale entrepreneur, small business owner, or a solopreneur, right? Well, you are the product as much as whatever else you're selling. So if you stink, then people think the product stinks.
That's the impression that you're giving off. And,
there you go.
If you don't care about yourself or your appearance, that's going to show through, I think, in your work, and people are going to have that understanding of you.
It's not Mensa stuff, is it, Chris, really? I mean, this is basic thinking. If we act more professional, we attract the type of customer we're looking to attract.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree with that. Now, what are you looking forward to most to round out your 2025? Do you have anything new or exciting that you're kind of working on to launch 2026 with?
Well, I'm actually quite intrigued because I just this morning I got an I don't want to say anything too loud, so just keep it between us. I got this email from a Nigerian prince who wants to put some money into my account just for a couple of days.
No way.
Right? Yeah. So, you know, I think if all goes well, Chris, you know, I you know, this time next year I could be, you know, I don't know, you know.
Hey,
I could be anywhere. I could be absolutely anywhere. The sky's the absolute limit. What am I doing? We're as an agency, we're trying to make small and medium-sized business owners more aware of the importance of customer psychology in whatever they're doing in marketing, whether that's pricing, whether that's framing, whether that's putting together packages, all of that sort of stuff to create communication that increases the likelihood of sales. Because at the end of the day, it's about sales, right? That's what we're in. We're in the selling game. If marketing makes an action that doesn't result in sales, it's not marketing. It's fluff. It's nonsense. It's more noise rather than signal. So there are a number of things that we can do once we understand how the human mind works and how decisions are being made by us as consumers. There are various things that we can do that can better align and better increase the propensity of closing a sale compared to what the competitors are doing. There are lots of little things that we can do. We did something for a client about 5-6 months ago, and we just made a very small change to their website, which probably took them about 30 minutes. And that's being kind. And it resulted in an uptick in sales of around 24%.
Wow.
Just by changing the way they chose to describe a product that they were selling. Increased it by 24%.
And think about all the money spent to get traffic to the website that wasn't converting. And they could have had that all along, had the messaging been there.
Traffic is a bit of a big subject that nobody wants to talk about at the moment with LLMs doing what they're doing. So I think when we do get a chance to get in front of these people, we need to maximize that closing opportunity. And we're not. Too many online stores are saying, what can I sell you, rather than what do you want to buy?
And like, this is what you need. You know, like almost the business is confused.
Well, we're not creating needs. We're trying to say, the answer is yes. Now, what's the question? Whatever you want, we can sell it to you. But we're not articulating the value proposition in a way that makes us unique or differentiated across a particular dimension that matters to the customer.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're not ready to buy now and they say, oh, well, I'll come back later, they don't know who their come back to later is. Yeah, well, I think there was red on the website. More than that, I don't know.
It doesn't help you.
You know? It doesn't help anyone. Probably helps the competition. Because maybe the competition's got red on their website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You educated them.
Because guarantee you the competition's ranking better on Google than you are. Right? So unless we can actually be creatively brave to stand out in the minds of our potential buyers, then we're just in that sea of sameness with everybody else.
And nowadays, you need to stand out.
You have to. The most dangerous place to walk in the street is right in the middle of the road. Right? Walk on the left or walk on the right. But if you walk in the middle, you're going to get squished. And people don't want to take a stand. They just want to blend in. Right? Everybody wants to stand out, but they don't want to make a noise. They don't want to be different. And it's like, well, hang on, sorry, but, shit or get off the pot. Mm-hmm. You either do it or you don't do it. But, if the stakes are too high for you, then get out and get a job at a bank or go and flip burgers or something, because entrepreneurship is not for you.
Absolutely. Gee, we appreciate you coming on to the show. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have today, but we'd love to have you back for a second episode as the behaviors and changes of marketing and business kind of come together. But we appreciate you coming to share your wisdom, tips, and tricks with us. Have a great rest of your 2025, and we're looking forward to all your future success as well.
Thank you for the invitation, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate that. Thank you.